drive out of Istanbul was pretty straightforward, and we left at about 11 AM. Back in New Zealand, I had already loaded all the points of interest and waypoints into the TomTom GPS, so it was just down to focusing on the driving and keeping clear of trouble, as there is plenty of it on Turkish roads. You have to share the road with buses, tractors, motorcyclists, horses, donkeys and pedestrians. By 2 PM we got a bit hungry, so we pulled over to a fast food place for a snack. It was a Saturday morning, so traffic was pretty light once we cleared the main urban area, which sprawls for about 40 kilometres westward. The speed limit on the main highway is 120 kilometres an hour, so drivers are travelling up to 140 kilometres an hour. The journey down the Gallipoli Peninsula was pretty uneventful, and soon we were driving along the Dardanelles coast where we saw lots of sunflower farms. It was about 40 degrees and the air conditioning didn't work in the car, so we pretty well had to drive our entire 30-day trip with the windows down. At 3:30 PM we reached the turn-off to Gallipoli. It was here in 1915 that 130,000 soldiers died in battle. 2/3 of them were Turkish. 36,000 British were killed, along with 8,700 Australians and 2,700 New Zealanders. 8,800 Frenchmen died. It's a fairly big site, and we had to drive between the different memorial sites. 26 Allied war memorials and 20 Turkish ones. King Xerxes I was known to have been here in Gallipoli in 481 BC, and Alexander the Great 150 years later. In Byzantine times, this area was the first line of defence for Constantinople, but by 1402 this came under the control of Sultan Bayezid I. Anyway, we could ramble on for days about the history of this place, but we don't want you to fall asleep just yet. About 20 kilometres south of Gallipoli Memorial Park is Kalitibabir, a small town with a magnificent fortress. It's here where you also take the ferry across to Gallipoli, where we would stay the night. The fortress itself can be clearly seen in this Google map. Climbing the walls is not for the faint-hearted. There are no safety rails and plenty of warning signs in case your health is not up to scratch. As usual, I climbed the fortress in my Chinese mountain boots, also known as jandals. Get a good view of the backside though. Don't get too near the edge. We're only at the beginning of our holiday, not at the end of it. Back to our first day. Pretty scary for our first day. Kalitibabir means Lock of the Sea. The fortress was built by Mehmet the Conqueror in 1452 and given a grand 7-storey tower 100 years later by Suleiman the Magnificent. It was climbed by Lillian the wife on August the 20th, 2011. And action! Parents, don't try this at home. Ask your children first. Let's see what that blue sign says.
Those with heart disease, hypertension and vertigo are strongly urged not to climb the stairs. Oopsie.
Oopsie. Too late. I've already climbed them. That was the castle. The ferry crossing from Kalitibabir to Janakali only took about 20 minutes. An unusual Turkish fashion was extremely well organised and efficient. Finding the hotel, which we had booked using Expedia.com, was a bit tricky because of the one-way system. Most New Zealanders stay at the Anzac Hotel, which is a little bit more expensive. Nevertheless, the Connacht Hotel was pretty good, clean and comfortable. Janakali has a population of 86,000 and is a popular base for visiting Troy, Gallipoli and for the Turks wanting a weekend break. The next morning, we had a bit of a wander around and discovered the Trojan horse. Of course, we all know that story, and a movie was made of it in 2004 starring Brad Pitt. The horse that was used in that movie is none other than this one, right here in Janakali. This 5-storey Ottoman clock tower was built in 1897. It was paid for by an Italian consul who left the town 100,000 gold francs in his will to build it. There were also several sundials on display. Sundials, of course, were in widespread use by the ancient Chinese, Greeks, Egyptians and Romans. Just 1.5 kilometres south of Janakali on the way to Troy is the Archaeological Museum, also called the Janakali Museum. There's quite a bit on display in the gardens, and most of the exhibits are from the surrounding countryside. For example, there's the Dardanos tumulus, which was one of the most important discoveries made in Troad. Excavations were made in 1959, and evidence indicates that this burial site was in use for 400 years, from 500 BC. Then there are all the finds from Troy, dating back 5,000 years. If you saw our 2010 DVD of the Istanbul Museum, you would have met Emperor Hadrian. Well, here he is again. And here's Aphrodite again as well. There were finds from Tendos and Assos and all the other osses.
You can't read any of that. Come on.
It's all in gibberish. Turkish.
This is the view going to Troy. Across the way here is the Gallipoli Peninsula. The word's out. Which is where we were yesterday. The other side of what we can see is where Anzac Cove was.
Troy is located 32 kilometres south of Janakali. It's real tricky to find the location of Troy because of potential confusion of place names, and many places in Turkey have the same name. You have to know the difference between Troy, Troia, Truva, Troia, Troas and Alexandra Troas. We call Troy Troy, Troia is Latin for Troy, Truva is Turkish for Troy, and Troia can be spelt Troia. Troas and Alexandra Troas are different places, and some confuse it with Troy. Got that? Sit the test tomorrow.
You going?
Ready, eh?
Yeah? Probably be the first time you see Stephen on or near a horse. There he is.
just like being inside a horse.
I don't think so.
Well, I just fulfilled one of my lifelong ambitions, although I never expected to enter a horse from that location. Troy has 5,000 years of history. It even had a logo, and more recently, a Michael Jackson impersonator. There's a ton of stuff to see there, and thanks to the archaeologists, all the information about the history of the place is handed to you on a plate. Archaeologists have been working there since 1870 and are still working there today. This is one of their work sites. What do you think this thing here is?
Could be on the roof, do you think? Because wouldn't you stick the light bulb up there?
Oh yeah, that's true too.
Not sure.
Me neither. There's rocks in the ground everywhere. Stubbed my toes on one of these too.
Yeah, there's some wood.
Until the late 1800s, many historians doubted whether Troy was a real place at all. One man, a German businessman by the name of Heinrich Schliemann, was convinced of its existence. To cut a long story short, he found the place, and today Troy is recognised to be not just one settlement, but a successive series of them. So far, archaeologists have discovered 9 Troys here.